Hello, and welcome to Mrs. Palmer's Picks. I'm Mrs. Palmer, and I'm going to read you a story. Today, we're going to read Up and Away, How Two Brothers Invented the Hot Air Balloon by Jason Henry. Joseph Michel Montgolfier was a dreamer just like you. Even at a young age, Joseph was curious to know how everything worked. Growing up in Annonay, France, in the mid-1700s, he flew kites, wondering how they stayed aloft like the great eagles in the sky. He took apart clocks and machines in his family's home to see what made them tick. As he grew older, Joseph read piles of books about math and science. He loved those subjects because through them he learned how the world worked. Joseph applied that knowledge to build amazing things. He wanted to be known as a great inventor, so he continued to read, learn, and experiment as much as he could. Of the 16 Montgolfier children, Joseph was closest to his brother Jacques Etienne. Etienne was not a dreamer like Joseph. He was the opposite, practical, matter-of-fact, and good at business. Even though their personalities were different, the brothers shared a common interest in science and the latest technical innovations of the day. When their father asked Etienne to manage the family's paper-making factory, it was a natural fit. Joseph was happy for his brother, as he preferred to spend time with his books, thinking of possibilities of his inventions. One afternoon, Joseph stretched and decided to take a break from a very long morning of study. Lost in thought, he walked out the front door, forgetting to close it behind him. A gust of wind blew through the open doorway. Joseph's papers looped up into the air. Many landed in the fireplace. Joseph returned home to a big mess, then looked over at the fireplace. Such a lot of work, gone so quickly. As he sat and watched bits of paper crackle and rise in the smoke of the fireplace, a thought came to him. And oh, what a thought! Joseph asked himself, what caused those bits of paper to rise in the fireplace? Something must lift them into the air. At this time in history, discoveries were being made in a new science called chemistry. Oxygen and hydrogen had been discovered a few years earlier, and hydrogen was now known to be lighter than air. Could it be possible there was a new gas within the smoke and fire that also had lifting properties? After observing the fire further, Joseph thought it must be so. More ideas rushed through his mind. If enough gas were contained in a large vessel, it would surely lift itself into the air. He could build a flying machine. Joseph had to test his idea, so he went right to work. He built a small rectangular frame out of thin, light wood and covered all the sides with a cloth called taffeta. There was a small opening in the bottom of the box, which he held over a fire. Within a few moments, it rose into the air and bumped against the ceiling. "Voilà, c'est super!" he exclaimed. The experiment was a success. Joseph rushed to tell the one person he wanted to share the news with, Etienne. Joseph hastily wrote, "Get in a supply of taffeta and of cordage quickly, and you will see one of the most astonishing sights in the world." It was not like Etienne to be caught up in one of his brother's wild endeavors, but after seeing Joseph's experiment for himself, he knew that the discovery was an amazing one. Together, the brothers designed and built a large sphere 3 times the size of the small box Joseph had used in his first experiment. They visualized that the larger object the larger the heat source would need to be to fuel it. A blazing fire was placed under the open end of the fabric, filling it with heat and billows of smoke. As it expanded, the sphere strained at the ropes and broke away. It floated out of sight, landing dramatically in a neighbor's field. Talk spread across the countryside of strange things happening at the Montgolfiers' home. Etienne knew it wouldn't be long before others figured out that the brothers were constructing a flying machine. Concerned that someone else would take the idea and claim it as his own, Etienne acted quickly and prepared for a public demonstration in the town square. There, everyone, including the town officials, would see that the Montgolfiers had invented the world's first flying machine. On a damp June day, Joseph and Etienne brought an enormous sphere, which they now called an aerostat, to the town square. Along with a team of men, they built another hot and smoky fire beneath the massive cloth. They even burned old shoes and wool to get the fire roaring. The aerostat filled quickly. Shouts arose from the crowd. The balloon was released into the sky, reaching a height of about 3,000 feet before slowly descending. No one had seen anything like it before. The town officials wrote about the flight in their official ledgers, recording the date of June 4th, 1783. Now, for all time, it would be known that the invention that flew on this date was the work of the Montgolfier brothers. News of the aerostat spread quickly through academic circles in Paris and Lyon via newspaper reports and word of mouth, and even reached the ear of the King of France. King Louis XVI wanted to see the aerostat for himself. He loved inventions and thought this one was so important that not only he should witness it, but all of France too. His invitation was a great honor. Joseph and Etienne were determined to impress him. They asked themselves, should they be the ones to fly in their invention in front of the king? No person had ever traveled into the sky before, and their father had begged them to never fly because he feared for their safety. Who, then, should they send aloft? Being the scientists that they were, the brothers chose to send 3 animals that would almost surely survive a brief journey into the sky. A rooster and a duck would be fine choices, since they were birds. A third passenger, a sheep, was also chosen because it was hardy and about the weight of a small man. When the 3 animals landed safely, the brothers figured it would be much easier for people to follow suit. Upon their arrival in Paris, Joseph and Etienne visited the workshop of Jean-Baptiste Revillon, a friend of Etienne's from their school days. Revillon was known for making the most beautiful wallpaper in France. The designs Revillon had on display in his workshop inspired the brothers. He collaborated with them and used his patterns to decorate the aerostat in a way that would be worthy of royalty. They would dazzle all of France. Revillon decorated the aerostat with beautiful blue and gold emblems, showing the king's royal signature. The new aerostat took a total of 4 months to construct. Outside the workshop, the aerostat was tethered to 2 tall poles, and a large brazier of burning straw and wood was placed underneath it. Slowly, the massive machine filled and took shape. It lifted and strained at the ropes until the skies opened up and rain began to pour down. The fire in the brazier went out. The intricate designs Revillon had painted on the outside of the aerostat cracked and peeled off in soggy, curled sheets that fell to the ground. Months of work had been destroyed by one sudden rainstorm, and the king was expecting a demonstration in a few short weeks. Disappointing the king was not an option. The brothers had no choice but to begin repairing the aerostat quickly. What originally took them months to build, they restored in just 4 days. When it came time to test the new aerostat, the skies were clear. The 3 friends gazed up at what they had created, and the possibilities ahead of them seemed infinite. On September 19, 1783, thousands of French citizens gathered in the courtyard of the King's Palace in Versailles to witness the historic flight. Underneath the large platform in the center of the courtyard, the Montgolfiers began to inflate the aerostat. A curtain off to the side then opened, and 2 figures walked over to Etienne, King Louis and Queen Marie Antoinette. King Louis asked, "Monsieur Montgolfier, surely you will tell me how this all works." And he did. The animals were brought up in front of the crowd and lifted carefully into a round basket underneath the rapidly filling aerostat. The balloon strained at its ropes and was let loose into the sky. The crowd cheered wildly. Everyone watched in amazement as the balloon soared over their heads and out of sight. So there they are, going over the countryside. The king's horsemen tracked the balloon's progress as it traveled across the countryside. They had to gallop to keep up with it. After 2 miles, the aerostat began to lose the hot air trapped within it and slowly descended into a forest meadow. Happy to be on the ground once again, the sheep bolted out of the basket and began grazing on the soft grass. The duck and rooster squawked and flapped their wings. The king's horsemen soon caught up with the first aeronauts and carried them back in honor to the palace. News of the Montgolfiers' incredible flight at Versailles traveled quickly, first across Europe and then overseas. The entire world became dreamers, too. And then at the end of the book, it goes into a little bit more detail about the Montgolfier brothers. And there's a biography of their life. I hope you liked this story. If you did, check it out at your local library. Thanks. Bye.